Welcome back to the Rise Above podcast. I'm your host, Will Lambley, and today we're so excited to be joined by someone that's making a huge impact, not only in Detroit, where he plays football, but across not even America, but the whole world. As we have on with us today, Detroit Lions kicker Jake Bates. First off, Jake, thank you so much for being on with me.
Absolutely. I'm pumped to be here.
I was wondering, for you being your first year in the NFL, does it still seem kind of surreal, like thinking that you're an NFL kicker?
Yeah, and especially I was talking to my family about it, like the longer the off season goes, like it seems so long ago, it doesn't feel like I'm in the NFL. It's a weird thing. I grew up being such a big fan of the NFL. And so, these people, in my opinion, were always, way up here. And it's still kind of like it doesn't feel like I'm, up there. So um it's still like going into the locker room every day was still like, holy cow, like these guys are these guys are NFL players. Um, and so it's still a little bit of like newness to it for sure, but it's really fun. Those guys, and then you learn really quick that they're just normal guys too. They just happen to be, gifted in, whether it's throwing a football or catching a football or, whatever it is, like they're just normal guys that, just happen to be really good at football. But everyone was super great to me in Detroit, and there's a super great culture there. So I mean, I couldn't have been more thankful to land there and be in a better spot.
Yeah, and it's cool that you're there right now too, especially from the journey you've been on. Can you take us back a little bit on your football journey and how it started? Is I knew it didn't really start with football; it started with another sport, but and kind of how God's been faithful through it.
Yeah. Sorry, I just got a call. No, yeah. So all I wanted to ever do growing up was play soccer, and like that was it. There was nothing else on my radar. And so that led me to Central Arkansas for my first 2 years of college. I played there for 2 years and had like a decent soccer career. I wasn't gonna play in the MLS or anything. I wasn't that good or go overseas or anything. But and so I wanted to try to transfer. Thought maybe I could play somewhere a little bit bigger, or just somewhere else. And um, then, that was my plan essentially. And I get home. Um, no one picks me up, so I'm home for like my sophomore spring semester. And one of my friends that I was friends with in high school was trying to walk on at TCU to kick. And so I was home and we would go to the high school and just like, I would be messing around, but he was taking it serious, trying to get ready. And
Yeah,
I would kick around with him and just kind of think, maybe something could happen. Like just in the back of my head, nothing serious. And then, um, long story short, I decided to hang it up in soccer and try to do anything I could um, to play football. Just because I wasn't done with sports, I had no ambition of going to the NFL or being this or that. I just wanted to keep playing sports because I love playing sports, and so I enroll at Arkansas to try to walk on, and I the whole first semester of my junior year, which is like the football season, there's no sort of tryout or anything like that. So I was just there as a normal student. Spring semester of my junior year, I finally got in touch with the football coaches, and I was gonna have a tryout in late March, and then COVID shut the world down, and so that tryout never happened.
wow.
So I go back home during the whole COVID thing while everyone's trying to figure everything out, and I just start reaching out every single coach in America. It feels like just sending emails, anyone to give me half of a chance. And Coach Witt at Texas State was the only person to reach back to me and was like, "Hey, you know, I know this is crazy, but blah 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 blah," like this whole thing. And so for that whole semester, I had to keep anytime I kicked, I had to send him video just to make sure that I was still kicking and all this stuff. And he was like, "We have a preferred walk on spot if you want it." And I was like, "Absolutely, sign me up right now."
Wow.
And so that's how I ended up at Texas State. And and so I go to Texas State for 2 years, and then it was kind of a dream of mine to be back at Arkansas. So I was able to transfer back to Arkansas. Um, Obviously, I was just kicking off. They had at Texas State there was Seth Keller, who was really good, and then obviously at Arkansas they had Cam, who just got drafted and was probably the best rookie in the NFL and maybe one of the best kickers in the NFL this year. And so I was just kicking off, and I was just happy to do that. But yeah, it's crazy when I think back to, especially as a little kid. Like I never wanted to play in the NFL. I thought it was cool because I like to watch. I was a big Cowboys fan, so I thought it was really cool, like football and stuff. But it was never my plan. My plan was to play, professional soccer. That was it. That was it. And I mean, you look back through so many different things that have happened, that little doors that have opened. Like, um, I was talking to Coach Witt at Texas State after the fact of, um, why did you even take a chance on me? Like, you could have. There's a million other kickers you could have just brought in. He's like, I just happened to be looking on my email that day. I never look on my email, and
Wow,
so
that's
you know
crazy.
yeah, I mean, just how intricate like God's plan can be. Just from one day, I happened to send that email that day, and he happened to look at his email that day, and they were in a need of a kicker to kick off. And there's just so many little things that, um, can't just happen by coincidence. It's God's plan for our lives, and He has it written out. And I mean, I think it's just insane. My story is crazy. It's not the craziest story ever by any means, but I think it's one that shows that he's so good, and he's gonna have you where he needs you. And whether that was me at a community college back home, like just wishing I could play soccer somewhere, um, or whether it's in the NFL now, and now it seems like it was always going to work out, but it didn't always feel like that. There were so many days that, especially after Arkansas, I was like, I've never kicked a field goal. Why am I going to try to play in the NFL? And I mean, there's late talks with God and talks with my family, and I think that's also so important, having a family behind you that loves and supports you. And luckily, I have that. And um, yeah, I mean, it's it is really insane just to think like how every detail can lead to closed doors, and open doors can lead
Hmm.
to where we are at now.
Yeah, no, that's so crazy too. So, whenever you emailed that Texas State coach, you were just emailing him, asking if there was a spot on the team. You weren't like sending him film too.
Dude, I was shooting. Yeah, so at first I would like attach a little YouTube clip, and I had just this written email that I would send to every coach, and it's just the only thing I would change is the coach's name, and just so I could
Yeah,
fire off as many emails as I could to as many coaches. And I was at my I was at my friend's house, and we were just hanging out, and I got a call from like a, I think his area code was like Washington or something, because that's where he's from. And I just like hung it up and got a text, hey, this is Coach Witt with Texas State football, give me a call when you can. I was like, my heart like dropped. I was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? Um and so that was, I mean, yeah, when he and then it later turned into like, you need to keep sending me film like every day that you go kick. Like, this is going to be your plan. You're going to, because I didn't know anything. And so he kind of helped me have a plan of when to kick and how to kick and all the stuff. And he's like, you're going to send me essentially every kick that you kick that day. And I was like, all right, man, I'm game as long as I'm getting a chance.
that's so cool. And in those 2 years at Texas State, were you the backup behind that kicker?
Yes, I think the first year I started on kickoff, and I think the first year I was the third string kicker. Like, if Seth had gotten hurt or something, I don't think I would have been in. I think I was third string, but the second year I was the backup.
That's awesome. And then after you finished up at Texas State, did you just have it in the back of your mind the whole time that you wanted to somehow get back to Arkansas?
Yeah, I think that was always like the goal, but I didn't think there was any possibility. The story of Arkansas is kind of crazy too, getting there, because they had Cam, obviously, and so they weren't
Yeah.
looking for a field goal kicker. And then they had, um, I don't know if you know Vito Calvaruso.
Yep.
They had him. I might have mispronounced his last name, but
Yeah.
I've always just called him Vito. They had him, and he was really good at kicking off too. And then after I decided to transfer, and I thought Arkansas would be dead, he decided to transfer. And so I saw him enter the portal, and I was like, huh. But, I never heard anything from Arkansas. They didn't, necessarily love the little bit of film that they had seen, I guess. And so I ended up committing to Mississippi State, and I car packed Starkville, Mississippi in my phone. I'm driving to Starkville, Mississippi, stop at my grandparents' house in Tyler, Texas, just to kind of break up the drive a little bit. And I was staying there for a night. That night that I was staying there, get a call from Coach Fountain at Arkansas, and then my kicking coach. Hey, um, they watched a little bit more film on you. They're more interested now, and essentially we want you to come on a visit. And I was like, I'm already committed to Mississippi State. That's where I'm going. Literally, my car is packed. I'm leaving at like 8 in the morning to get to Starkville tomorrow. And they're like, look, tell them you can't come until the next day, and come to Arkansas. And if you want to leave, you can leave, but come on a little visit. It's an unofficial visit, but come on a visit, see the campus, meet the coaches, all that stuff. And if you want to leave, we won't say anything. But if you want to stay, just stay. I get there, and I just never left. And I knew when
That's crazy.
I knew when I accepted the visit, like I'm gonna come on a visit. I knew I wasn't gonna leave because that's where I wanted to be, and I'd already been there, so I had some familiarity with the area, with Fayetteville, and so, yeah, that was just a calling my parents. Hey, I'm going to Arkansas. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're going to Arkansas. I thought we were going to Mississippi State. It's like, um, a lot of, ups and downs, but, and, crazy things that have happened. But, um, yeah, I mean, it is crazy because that is where I wanted to be. And I just didn't think it was possible because the way the situation looked. But, um, you know, I guess, nothing's impossible, um, with our Lord, and that's what's so cool is, that's just another example of, this is my story. My plan is I'm going this way to Mississippi State, and He's like, no, no, I have you going this way to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and that's where I need you right now. And I think that's so cool that that's kind of the way it works, and that's the way it worked in my story.
No, that's so crazy. How literally your bags were packed on the way to Starkville, and then you literally got the call like right when you're in Tyler, Texas, on the way there,
It
and
was crazy
God
too,
literally
because
had you go the opposite way.
yeah, and I was going to Mississippi State, and like I hadn't, and it was kind of weird because, and maybe this was, all His intricate plan. I couldn't find somewhere to live. So I was going up to Starkville trying to find somewhere to live on the way because like I couldn't
Wow,
find,
that's crazy.
all this and that. So I didn't even have a room in Starkville. So there wasn't like a lease I had to get out of. It was just all like little things that were like, dang, that's kind of cool. That's bigger than anything I could have ever planned.
And then when you got to Arkansas, did you think there was any chance you could start as the kickoff guy?
Um, I was hoping kickoff, yeah. I knew field goal was probably was probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Um, but there was Cam there, and then I guess Blake Ford was there, who's back there now. And so there were a couple people that I had to, beat out just for the kickoff spot. And um, luckily I was, able to do that and at least get to play a little bit, because that would have been really bad if I went there and my last year of sports just didn't even get to see the field. So, I'm happy with the way it turned out. Coach Fountain put a lot of trust in me in kicking off when I didn't necessarily have the best camp. So, I owe a lot to him too, and Coach Pittman as well.
And then what were some lessons you learned from that year at Arkansas, being around guys like Cam and starting as the kickoff guy at Arkansas?
Yeah. One, as like being able to start at kickoff, I kind of figured out like I'm especially with a big crowd, because the size of the Arkansas stadium is significantly bigger than what I had ever played in before. And I can't be like a big pump up guy. Like I have to be as calm as possible. And I learned that really quick there because I think there was a couple kickoffs with that. I tried to get like crazy with the crowd and they start playing swag surfing and all that stuff and it didn't go good. So I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to be good. So I had to calm down a little bit. I figured that out pretty quick. And then just being around Cam, man, just seeing every day what a pro looks like. And even though he was only 19 or 20, he was going to be a pro. And, you know, how like meticulous he is in his work and how serious he takes, you know, every kick. He doesn't take a kick off. And I understand it now from kind of this side of it, but he could, you know, he could go back to his sophomore year in high school and tell you every single kick he's missed, where it was, what game it was, you know, what hash, where he missed it. And I mean, it was just like, okay, this is, you know, this is what it means to be a pro. And so even though I wasn't kicking field goals, it was like I'm competing against a pro. And, you know, if I want to ever even have a chance at the NFL, that's the level that I have to get to.
Yeah, I think it's cool because a lot of people in the same room, whether it's quarterbacks, kickers, or whatever it is, like they honestly aren't as close as you and Cam have became because they see that competition and that brings them
Mhm.
apart. But I think it's cool how it actually brought you guys together.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, we both got to get first off we were just, you know, he's a really good dude and he's super nice and he was super welcoming.
Mhm.
um but also like I think we both got to see each other as we didn't see each other as threats as far as much as like we're pushing each other to get better. And you know, we still talk literally every day and we kick a lot together in the off seasons and stuff, and it's kind of still the same thing. Like I want to beat him and he wants to beat me, but at the end of the day we realize that we're making each other better. And I think that's kind of how we saw it back then, and it's just cool to see how it's unfolded. um but no, I mean, I owe so much to him and the role that he's played in my life outside of football, but also like just as a kicker, because I mean, I don't think I would have been able to be pushed as hard as I was pushed being in his shadow essentially. And I don't think, and I mean, I hope I was able to push him, you know, a little bit at least. And so I think it was just really cool, and it's been a really cool relationship. And um, it was just really cool to be able to go through my rookie year and his rookie year kind of together. And you know, we got to talk about it together, and we even got to play each other. But you know, when he's struggling with something, you know, I'm probably struggling with the same thing too, because we're both trying to just figure it out. And so having that community is so important. And there's some other guys like Blake Groupie, the Saints kicker, we're really close to. Um, and so just having that community of brothers is so big in a world that we were so unfamiliar with.
Yeah, and I'm sure I know I've heard Cam talk about this too, but as a kicker, especially in the NFL, whenever you're, I'm sure when you're walking out there, especially for that first game, there's so much nerves going through your head of, am I even qualified to do this?
Yeah, it's, I mean, especially like I had a really bad training camp. Um, and it was like that's something you learn too quick is, you know, every move you make is publicized, and there's, you know, there's fans and reporters and, you know, all this stuff at training camp practices, and I was practicing really really bad. And um I mean, I remember this one day I went like 8 of 14 or something, and like I called my parents and I called my then fiance, now wife. I was like, I think I'm coming home. Like I think I'm getting cut tomorrow. This I've never kicked so bad. I don't know what is wrong with me. Like I can't do it. And so I knew that going into that first game that I still kind of had that bug on my back, and where like, you know, all the fans had seen me struggle. All the reports had talked about how bad I had been in camp. I remember before our first preseason game in New York, I was in a hotel. I was in my hotel room, and I was watching ESPN, and across the bottom of the screen, it was a Adam Schefter report. Jake Bates has been struggling in Lions camp. I expect them to bring in another kicker, like like 4 hours before my first
Wow.
preseason game, and I was like, oh, like what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
Um, but and so like, yeah, going into that first game, it was really nerve wracking, and still every game I feel like you know, I have something to prove. And I'm a very like, I don't love it about myself, but I'm a very big like chip on my shoulder kind of guy, especially with, the way that my career has gone, as far as college, like never kicking and field goal and um, all that stuff. And so, yeah, the first game was nerve wracking, and I had a kick with like no time left to send it into overtime, and it was a close kick. It was like a 32-yarder left hash, um, and so that's a kick that you have to make. And but it was, I mean, you feel that pressure really quick, and you realize the significance of the NFL, and that's one thing that I didn't realize at first going into it, like the significance of it. Like everyone watches the NFL, and I didn't really realize that until I was in it. And um, no, it was a lot of nerves. And but going back to Cam, especially like being able to talk to him like in times of when I'm really struggling, like he knows when I'm kicking well, like what it looks like. So being able to send him film and being able to break down film with him. And so I think that's so cool because if I don't if God doesn't close that door to Mississippi State, open it to Fayetteville, I don't know Cam Little. We don't have this relationship. Where am I at as far as a kicker? Like, where's my career at? I'm if I don't go to Arkansas and I don't meet Cam, I'm really probably not still kicking, and that's kind of the truth of it because just the impact that he's had in my life, and I'm so grateful for our friendship and the growth that we continue to have together.
Yeah, I think that's so awesome. It really speaks to the importance of having friends in our life that that sharpen us. As it says
Yeah.
in Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron, just like one man sharpens another. And I think it's so cool how God works out certain things at certain times. Like you were literally on the way to Mississippi State, but then you got that call, and that's what led you to Arkansas. That's how you're able to build that friendship with Cam, and literally both your guys' rookie years are at the same time. And
Hmm.
something I would love to hear about is I've heard a little bit about after your time at Arkansas, you thought you're going to be a brick salesman or do this or that. But what did your journey look like after Arkansas and now leading you up to where you are now?
Yeah, so obviously I didn't get drafted or anything. I got a little bit of I was with the Texans for about 2 weeks, played one preseason game. Um, but really that was it and nothing else. And so I thought it was done. I was like, that's awesome. I have a Texans jersey with my name on the back and it's in my closet. Like that if that's it, that's pretty cool. And so and then as you do, like I had to find a job. I had to I had to make money somehow. And
Yeah.
so I mean I'm just emailing, LinkedIn all the time, blah 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 blah, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. I still get like text or emails every now and then like, hey, we came across your profile, you really match this job or whatever. And I'm like, I think right now I don't I'm all right
Yeah.
right now. I'll stick with the job that I
Does
have.
anyone ever come across your profile and they're like, "Wait, are you the kicker for the Lions now?"
I've gotten that a little bit. I deleted LinkedIn because I would get a lot of
Yeah.
notifications and um but yeah, it did first like, are you? And it's yeah. So I had to delete that, but I'll still get like texts and stuff from like resumes I sent in. But yeah, I landed this job in Houston, and it was just a brick selling job, and it was a good job. And it sounds kind of funny, like brick sales sounds kind of funny, but it was a good job, and it was one that I was happy to have. And I remember having this kind of not no, I don't know if I would call it an awakening or whatever, but I still wanted to play, but I was doing this, and I just remember being like, I remember one night sitting down and praying and being like, Lord, whether it's a brick sales job or if I'm, a kicker in the NFL or the UFL that I was trying to get in at first, I want to be the best. I want to be the best that I can be in the spot that you have me. And I want to use whatever platform I have, whether it's just meeting customers, Lord, I want people to see me through you. And that was kind of it. And that kind of turned my head. And I was like, right now I'm a brick salesman. I'm going to be the best one that I can be. And I'm going to work hard and I'm going to, you know, do everything that I can to be as good as I can be in this. And that way I think, honor the Lord in the spot that he's put me in and not be lazy in it and not, mistreat it. Um, and I wasn't there for long. I was only there for a few weeks, maybe a month, but In those few weeks or months, I did learn a lot. And it sounds stupid because it was only for a few weeks, but think I learned a lot about myself, and I think I matured a lot in knowing that wherever I'm gonna be, um, whether it's where I'm at now or where I was, like I don't want to use this. I don't want to misuse whatever platform I have, whether it's a big one or a small one. I think the Lord gives everybody talents, and some talent, like in His eyes, I think they're all similar, or they're all the same as far as like importance. They're just different. So where I have maybe an ability, like he's given me a talent to kick, he's given you a talent to podcast. And so I think, in his eyes, those are the same, and he wants you to use whatever talents and skills he gives you to glorify his name, not wish you were doing something else somewhere else. He wants you
Mhm.
to be, using the platform that he's given you, whether or not you think it's where you should be or not. That's where he has you, and that's where you need to, glorify him. And I think that's kind of the awakening that I had with that job, was that it's not up to me where I'm going to be, but where I'm at and where he has me, I'm going to do everything I can to glorify his name.
And having that mindset of no matter where I'm at, I'm going to do it just to glorify God's name. Did that give you a certain peace in your life, no matter if you're working somewhere or playing in the NFL?
Absolutely. I think one thing that I have to remind myself a lot of too is, like, I never want who I am to be defined by what I do. It always has to be separate. Um, and right now, what I do is I'm a kicker for the Lions, but that's not who I am. I'm a sinner saved by amazing grace, and um, you know that what I do, that kicker for the Lions, that can be taken away in an instant. But that who I am, if that's tied to that, and this gets taken away, then I'm at an identity crisis and I don't know where to go. But that's why I think it's so important to me to have that peace of mind of knowing that being the kicker for the Lions is not my end all be all. Like I don't want that to become who I am. I want to be firm in my faith, and I want to be a good man, and um, a good follower of Christ, and that's what I want to be. That's who I want to be. Not I don't want what I do to be who I be. I didn't say that right, but I think it made sense.
No, but I understand what you're saying. I think that's a great testament to anyone's life because not everyone's going to be a kicker at any level, but what everyone in life is doing is someone might have a job, might play a sport, or doing whatever they're doing. The importance of not making what you're doing who you are, but rather realizing you can have such a great purpose by making who you are
Hmm.
in Christ and knowing that that's what can really bring that wind behind your sail, no matter what you're going through.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think something that I like I try to tell myself a lot too, is that if the best thing that I ever do is make a kick, regardless of the significance of it, if that's the best thing I ever do in my life, I've failed this life, because I wasn't put on the earth to just make or miss kicks. Like that's not why I'm here. I'm not doing that. I'm not here to make or miss kicks, or be a good kicker or a bad kicker. We're here to glorify His name, and lead people to Him.
What were some ways this year, being in the NFL, did your faith grow? Because I know with all the pressure on the outside, I know that um, it could either be easy to focus on that or focus on what God says about you.
Yeah, I think um, a lot of it has just been like kind of finding peace in every up and down. And Coach Phipp, our special teams coach in Detroit, kind of says it: don't ride the roller coaster. The ups and the downs and the downs. You can't ride that. You got to be right there. And I think I've had a lot of lows and I've had a lot of highs, but um, I think my faith has grown so much because I haven't changed the way that I've done things. Like, I kept the same morning routine, which was waking up, getting in the Word, doing my journal, praying, and whatever was happening the day of, or whatever, or what happened in the past, whether it was a made kick or missed kick, like that prayer time is the same, and our God is the same. And I think, it took a while for me to get there where it's like I want this to happen, I want this to happen, I want this to happen. But
Yeah.
seeing, the way things have planned out, and that's why I don't love, sitting and resonating on like what's happened in the past. But I also think it's really important to be able to see the way things have worked out and see, the way that God's worked in my life. And um, I think too, being on this side of it, I wish so badly that back then I just trusted, and I trusted, and I didn't, want and want and want. I just trusted where he had me. And so that's what I try to tell myself too right now is, I know back then I wanted so badly, or I wish so badly that I just trusted where he had me and I trusted his plan. So right now, I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to trust his plan, whatever's going on. I'm going to work hard, but I'm going to trust his plan. And so I think that kind of maturity and that realization has helped grow the strength of my faith and the foundation of it so much.
Yeah, that's such a testament to and a great reminder. I know for myself and so many that God was faithful in the past in our life, and He'll be faithful now in our life. And it reminds me so much when you talked about the importance of trusting in God. What it says in Proverbs 3:5-6, where it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understandings. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight." And over this past year, as I know you've talked about the importance of getting up in the morning and getting in the Word, has there been some passages or a verse that really stood out to you and helped you?
Absolutely. I have Hebrews 12:1 is kind of what feels like my kind of go-to verse, I guess. I say it before, like I recite it in my head before every kick, um, and I read it before every game. It's a verse that I've had with me for a really long time now, and I think now I'm kind of seeing more of the significance of it than I did a long time ago. But it has been with me since high school, and it's been a verse that I've been able to lean on to. um, it says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." And so the way that I see it is, especially, and it's easy to see it when I'm on the field and about to go out for a kick, and so therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, there's 70,000 people there, throw off everything and just run the race that he has before you. Um, and I want to run that race, as best as I can to glorify him. And I think that brings me so much peace, and just being like, it makes me able to breathe and just calm down and just, I'm not playing for these people. I'm playing for one. And I think that brings such an immense amount of peace and calm and trust.
That is such a great verse, and something I thought of so much during this podcast is the importance of running your own race and doing whatever God has called you to do, and not looking to the left or to the left or to the right,
Mhm.
but just running your own race. I love that verse. I think that's so cool and such a great reminder for all of us the importance of knowing Scripture and how it's so important when facing challenges or just situations when there's a pressure, not focusing on what we see around us, but focusing on what God says.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I mean that verse does hold a lot, um, of weight for me, and I'm really happy that, I have it so close to me, and I'm able to bring it up, whenever I need it, which is a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I definitely need verses every day. Walking in situations like I have no idea what's going on, but
Absolutely.
just gotta keep trusting God.
Yeah,
But
definitely. I think, yeah.
yeah, a question I'd love to ask you as we're getting off today is, um, if there's one thing that people can know you for, whether someone came across you once or someone you've been around a lot in your life, what would you want them to know you for?
Um, I want people to know me for the way that I love people, and I think it's so important, and that's something, so easily that you can show, Jesus through you, is the way that you love people. And so, like one thing that I want people to, if someone has one interaction with me, I want it to be, you know, not that I was talking about myself or talking about this or talking about that, but that I was genuinely, interested in talking to that person and genuinely like showing, what it means to be a Christ follower and by loving others. And um I think, love is so powerful, and that's what I want to show, every day is that I love people the way that Jesus loves people.
Yeah, no, that's so great. It's something that is so awesome because that's just so contagious, and
Hmm.
reminds me of a quote that I've loved recently that says, "When you're selfish, your legacy ends with you, but when you're selfless, your legacy continues through so many." And I think that is so true about when we love others. That is one of the most contagious things that we can ever do. And it kind of
Absolutely.
reminds me of your interview. I forget which game it was when you made a big kick, and you talked about how you just wanted people to see Jesus through you as you're out there. You don't want them to see you as a kicker or anything else, but you just want them to see Jesus through you.
Yeah, and I think, that's you've there's different like scenarios like that. I was on a big stage, but you don't have to be on a big stage to show
Yep.
Jesus's love, to the person, working at Chick-fil-A or at Whataburger or whatever. Like, you don't have to have cameras around you to show Jesus's love. And I think that's what I kind of meant by that, is that I don't like, I just want people to see, whether no matter where they see me or where I meet them or whatever, like I just want them to see Jesus through my life. And I think showing people love is such a good way of being able to show that.
Yeah, it's so true that no matter where you're at, what you're doing, you can always love those next to you. And one last question I love to finish off with is obviously being the Rise Above podcast. And as you know, people are going through struggles every day, whether it's a diagnosis, something their families happen, something in their personal life. What's an encouraging message you'd have for someone that's just going through a hard season right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to say, it's hard to do, but um, you know, putting that faith and that trust that that it's going to work out the way that the Lord wants it to work out and the way that He's written it. And I think something that's so powerful in being able to trust in His plan is getting in prayer and being constant in prayer,
Mm.
and admitting that you don't understand why what's going on is going on, but Lord, I'm going to trust you and I'm going to lean on you. And where you have me, I'm going to work as hard as I can, and I'm going to try to be more like you every single day. But I put my trust in you. And I think being constant in prayer is so important, and being able to realize that you don't realize everything, but He does. And um, I think that's super important, and especially, good and bad times, is um, not letting your um, not letting your praying knees get lazy, so to speak. And I heard this one thing. One pastor said, he said, you don't drift closer to Christ. Like, if you're lazy, you're not going to just happen to, drift closer to your relationship with Him. There is work that needs to be involved, and I think one way that you can do that is prayer. Prayer is so powerful, and He gives us the gift of prayer to talk to Him. And you know I think just being constant in prayer, that's something that I try to be super high on, is being constant in prayer. And I'm saying it a lot because I think it's so meaningful to me, and it's something that has helped my life so much. Is not like just check boxes, like, oh, I prayed, a couple times this week, like that's probably good. um I mean, like talking to God on a drive that you have by yourself, or um just right before you eat, or right before you go to bed, or right when you wake up. um I just think, that can help you realize that you don't have to understand what's going on, but there is something far greater than you going on, that you can put your trust in.
That is so good. I love what you said about how we don't always have to understand what's going on in our life, but when we put our trust in Christ, there's something far greater that He is doing through our life, which points back to a verse like Romans 8:28, where it says, "All things work for the glory of those that love God and are called according to His will." And I know I've been so encouraged by having you on today, hearing that things might not go exactly how we want to go. Like I just keep thinking back to when you were literally almost going to the opposite side of the country as you're on the way to Starkville, Mississippi, and then you ended up back at Arkansas to when you thought you were going to be a brick salesman. Now you ended up all the way in the north part of America in Detroit, and how what our plan is might not always be what happens, but when we put our trust in Christ, He always has something much greater for our life, whether it's something we saw coming or something we can never see coming. And I just can't thank you enough for being on with us today, Jake.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's been a blast, and I know so much good is coming from this podcast, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. And for everyone listening, we can't thank you enough for listening today, and know that no matter the storm you're facing, that when you put your trust in Jesus Christ, you can rise above whatever the storm is. Thank you for everyone listening. To everyone who has listened to this episode of the Rise Above podcast. If you want to hear this episode and many more like this in the future, you can continue to support the Rise Above podcast by subscribing on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts at, and writing a review of a way this podcast has helped you in your own life. And one final thing you can do is share this podcast with someone else. Because the awesome thing about rising above is when you're truly able to rise above in life, you're not just doing it by yourself. You're bringing others along the way. So as I'm trying to help others rise above, and others are helping me rise above, you can also do your friends a favor and help them rise above by encouraging them with this podcast.